Now then, people, good evening and welcome back to the Just Joe Football Show. We're going to be this evening dissecting, discussing Angus Kinnear's insight, I guess, into Leeds United, the transfer window, stadium development, and much, much more that he discussed with the Square Ball at length. I'm not sure when it was done, but it was released earlier today. I've got Joe to jump on and so we can discuss together and go through it and give our thoughts and opinions. I don't just want it to be me giving mine, because I am aware that I could easily look at it one type of way. So I think it's important to hear a different voice, and we all know Joe is the voice of reason within the space. So before we do get into it, though, what I do just want to say is, again, just massive big up to Dan and Michael and everyone involved at the Square Ball. I thought they did a fantastic job. The questioning wasn't like, I don't know, they didn't pull any punches at times. There was a few things where I was like, oh, go on, lads, go on. So, so fair play to them. And the full interview is in the description to this video as well, folks. So if you want to go check it out, please do. I want everyone to get their thoughts in. Go check out Joe's channel as well. Anything we might have missed, because there was a lot in there. It was an hour and 34 minutes. I tried to make notes, and then I thought, wow, this is going to be on all day. There's been some articles that have been done that we can take bits out of. If we do forget anything or anything you want us to touch on and give our thoughts on, then please do get it in the put it in the chat. But yeah, what do you know? What my overriding emotion was, and I shared it with you in a group chat we've got. I think the content one. I was actually quite calm. I thought he dare I say it came across really well, Joe. There's a few bits we'll get into that I disagree with and that, but I think they were probably right in waiting to the transfer window being shut and waiting a few weeks, because if this had gone on during, it'd have been like a red rag to a bull. But I actually thought it was quite chill. I don't know what your initial thoughts on it were.
I found it very easy to listen to, and just to what you've opened up by saying, massive credit to Dan and Michael on this, because without realizing that they've created something that's an annual show. Now, they may have, I'm sure, and
we're quite lucky we get that as well, aren't we, Joe? We're quite lucky we get that little insight.
100%. Like we wouldn't get that, so it's great that someone is getting that.
Yeah.
And I've been watching and listening to Square Ball for years, and there's a bit of pressure then that goes on to Dan and Michael from the fan base of, well, don't let him away with this, and make sure you hold to account on that, and they've been getting that. I've been saying it all week. I'm looking forward to it. On my show, I've been looking forward to this. And that builds pressure on them to get it right. And I think they absolutely knocked it out of the park. Dan Moylan is not the kind of guy, from what I've seen, I don't know the guy, but from what I've seen of him, who lets people off easily. He asks very good questions, very well thought through, but also his follow-up questions are excellent as well. Like, he nearly directs Angus in a direction that he wants him to go, knowing he might say a couple of bits and then pulls those levers.
Exactly.
It's like a press. Dan Moylan sets traps for people to walk in, and then
that's a good way of looking at it. Actually, he's very good in the press. Brendan Aronson-esque.
Michael the same. If there was something that was missing or a bit more clarity was wanted on something, he's there that net there to make sure it was asked properly and the right way. And I understand there's a level that when you're dealing with these kind of people and you're dealing with professional businesses, there's a level of you can't just say what you want, because you just won't get a chance to do this again. So you've got to be careful with the balance and what you ask and how you ask it. And I think from a professional company business perspective, I think both the guys did a cracking job. And Angus did exactly what I would have expected. He has handled this exactly as a CEO of a company would handle things, transactional. He listened to all the questions. He gave detailed answers. But the biggest thing for me was he uses logic an awful lot with everything. And that can be a very safe tool to use. It's very hard to argue with logic and data. But what I will say is, and he deserves credit for this, whether people in the chat believe it or not, they could have said no to this, and Kinnear could have said no to this, and he didn't. And that's 2 years in a row with two challenging windows in a row where Angus Kinnear has fronted up and gone in and sat down, and has gone in without pre-prepared questions as well, which is huge. There's one big piece out of this, though, I just want to say, because the more I was listening and watching it, the more this was going down in my head of how do we talk about this? How do we break this down? We wanted this interview. because a couple of months ago, everybody, nearly to a man and a woman in the chat, and ourselves were saying they've got to explain things. They've got to tell us things. They've got to start explaining things. They've got to be transparent. You then can't spend an hour and a half listening to Angus Kinnear and then go, I don't believe you. You can't ask for it, and then when it's given to you, you go, well, I don't believe you. Don't ask for it. If you think this is bullshit, and there's a couple of people already commenting on it, if you think this is bullshit, then don't watch it. Don't ask for it in the future. Don't ask the club to speak about something. Don't ask for anyone from the club to come out and ever tell you anything. Because if your response is just going to be, I don't believe you, then there's no point in hearing the information in the first place. So not everything he said in this I agree with or believe. Nope. But there are parts of it that I do believe and I do see the logic in. So for me, there's a 50-50 on this.
Yeah, agreed. I agree with you. I'm just getting a little bit of feedback now, Joe. I wasn't before, but yeah, no worries. There was a lot. There's a lot in there to unpack and to go through. To be fair, there's so much in there. I do think as well, Ryan. I don't know if I agree with this. I really don't like this. You've got to talk about Red Bull. You've got to talk about Red Bull regardless. And maybe you don't feel as strongly about it as other certain sections of the fan base, and that's all that is. I was grateful that they pushed the Red Bull stuff onto Angus. I mean, he went as far as to say, if they ever changed the name, then I would leave. He said. So yeah, I think it's fair. Like, these are questions that needed answering, and every fan will probably always want him to ask something more, or some might say he's asked too much, and it's always, you're never going to get it 100% right. But I think. I think, and like you've said, John, there will be certain sections of the fan that say, well, we've heard this before. And we have, because they've gone on when Bielsa were there and said, when we talk about players, he was offered players, he didn't want them and all that, as though it was Bielsa. So you are right, and you're right to remain sceptical at all times.
You should be sceptical. And me and John have had lots of conversations over the last year or two about keeping realistic expectations about your football club. But I will again say the same thing to John that I said. If you've heard it all before, then don't ask for it in the future. You can't have both. You can't. You cannot have it both ways. You cannot demand that the club come out and tell you what's gone on, and then say, "Well, we've heard this before. It's nonsense." Yeah. Because then you're like, "Go. What was the point of coming out and asking for it? If you knew they were going to do this, then you're never going to get 100% of the truth." And I think what really came through on this was Angus has explained to people why you can't have the truth all the time. He explained the danger that causes Leeds when they do that. Because we heard, when Dia mentioned, we heard Carvalho mentioned, they're two names that didn't leak out that Leeds were interested in at all. And he's just pretty much told you we were interested in both those players. So there is a definite reason for trying to keep your bib clean and keep everything quiet. But if you want this, to hear this stuff, you don't have to be happy or satisfied with it. But if you want this, you've got to accept what they say on face value, and then keep that little bit of skepticism in the back of your head.
Yeah, I think where would you like to start, Joe? Where would you like to start? I mean, we can go right to the top. Obviously, he was asked about last season, and he did say it was a failure, but he didn't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We achieved so much. I'll do it again. I always mention it. Pick up that 90-point trophy. And statistically, he did say the best opportunity to get back up is within the first year. Obviously, we miss out on that. Was pressed on the collapse after Easter, and he made the point of saying that, in the end, we were over-reliant on one or two players and we didn't have enough goals across the side. And you can tell that Angus has been given all the data in terms of, look, we didn't get goals from here and there. And he spoke about right back, and he spoke about, we didn't have any from midfield, none from Kamara, etc. So does believe, I think this started, it sort of like went straight off into the transfer window, really, about having better options across the pitch this year with Bogle and having Ampadu back in midfield, which then, we had more in midfield from that standpoint. And that's where it started off, and it was fine. I mean, I can't lie to you. This is how my mind went initially, right? So he's mentioned about being, he said, I had to sit in the royal box and shake the hands, and my head went, fuck off, mate, you're Luton. what does it matter to you? But that's the initial, and
you
I'm only,
that.
This is where I started at. And
In
I'm only
hot,
going to
mate.
share. Oh, I was there. I was not. Fuck off. You're Luton. Fuck's it got to do with you about being in Royal? But do you see what I'm saying? And, but then by the end, I was like, okay. And that's what I was saying. I was quite cool. So I originally went in with, nah, fuck you kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then by the end, I was like, because I'm writing on my notes and I put, you're Luton, mate. What's it matter to you? Do you know what I mean? So like, it's just a journey I went on. But I thought it was cool to begin with, wasn't it? It was all right start.
Yeah, I had a reaction to that point as well, but a different reaction to your one. I had headphones on and I was cleaning my house because Jess was due home from Spain. So I was cleaning around the place and I was listening to it as I was doing bits and throwing the ball for dog and keeping myself busy. And when he said that, I went, oh, it's nice to have a ticket, isn't it, Angus? You know? And then when he's talking to the 22,000 people on the season ticket waiting list, I'm like, yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. I'm one of them. And I have no idea where I am in that queue. And nor will I ever know probably where I am in that queue. But I was, slightly different approach. I kind of went, well, isn't it terrible that you had to sit in the royal box in Wembley? Yeah, God, you must have had a miserable day. You must have had a terrible day. But but after that, again, I think you kind of explained everything that we were expecting. You've got to understand it from their perspective as well. We've all worked in jobs. We've all worked for people. And if you put a lot of effort and energy into something that doesn't come off the way you want, like whether you're a Leeds fan or not, you feel that from like that's their job. Like when I worked for Microsoft, if I come home after running a training camp for a week and it's not delivered the scores at the end of the week that I wanted from that week, that'll stay with me for a while. Like, so it does have an impact on you, putting the effort and the time and the hours that go into running a football club and to not come out with the goal at the end of it, knowing that you've missed the best opportunity to do it, and then knowing also that you're looking at Georgie, that you're looking at Archie, and they're saying it. You're looking at them on the pitch going, they're gone. They have to go now. They have to go. Yeah. And there's just no way around it. I did find it interesting how he handled the PSR Archie question. That was interesting to me. Because he pretty much said...
bounce around. Go on. We can bounce around.
Yeah, just when I'm on that topic and looking at them on the pitch, because we were all led to believe that they wanted to sell somebody else, but it was Archie that went because the offer came in and it was the only offer on the table. But then when you listen to them, it's pretty much a case of, well, actually, no, we didn't need to sell anybody for the 12-month PSR up to the 30th of June. But we did have to sell somebody for the 3-year period. And that was the problem. But it didn't have to be that date, but it had to be for a certain amount. So he said we had.
Why did they put?
Why did they amount, not individuals?
But why put the release clause in for that date though?
But they said that was what was interesting. He said Archie's representatives, not Archie. He said his representatives refused unless that was in the contract.
Of course, but at the same time, I don't think they'd have gone with we have it for the PSR deadline. Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, I think he said that they didn't really matter for that. But it's a fair point. But what I would say is if there was a certain value on it, they've obviously put the release clause at 40 million thinking he's 17. Like by the time we get to the Premier League and that someone even has a sniff of paying that, we'll have him on a new contract and that'll be gone or it'll be much, much higher. And then in 1 year, someone goes, feck it, we'll take the gamble now. Being Spurs. And Spurs are the only club that would gamble that kind of money on an unproven Premier League youngster. They've done it before. So there was that piece there. But I was kind of like, well, okay, I can understand the reasoning now for why the pricing of the release clause was so high. I didn't understand the reason for it being in the contract, or because they'd said that we were in control. And you're like, well, you guys put this in there. But Angus has been very clear to point out. And he's also kind of pushed back a little bit on Archie on a couple of things where they said, well, Archie said this, this, and this. And he goes, yeah. And when he spoke to Spurs, he said this, this, and this. Which went against what he's... So there's always... When you're with a club, you will say whatever you have to say for that club.
Of course,
so both sides are thinking.
Yeah. No, of course. And he did say, like, to hit the 2 targets, 2 sales would have to be done across the period, he said, didn't he? But they didn't have to be timed before the 30th of June. The reality is we didn't have to sell him, but we did have to make 2 big sales. Now, my response to that will be, well, you made about fucking 4 of them, 5 of them in the end, though, right? So you made a lot of sales, a lot more than the 2, because, you know, we lost Somerville, we lose Cree, we lose Gray. Somerville, Rutter, Gray. Then you add on top of that likes of Kamara, etc., etc. It's getting up into the 100 and odd millions or whatever it was. And he mentioned, obviously, it could have been Pascal Strauch, Nonto, Voba, and there were other players in the mix. I think he mentioned Melier at one point.
He mentioned Nonto, Ampadu, Strauch as players that bids were rejected for.
Yeah, he mentioned a couple of bids of 10 plus million, didn't he?
10 plus million that they rejected. But that's why they... And again, my big piece on this was, and I said it when the notes from his meeting with the support advisory board came out as well, is my issue with Leeds is not necessarily how they've conducted things. My issue is how they communicate things. You know, and not the gaps in communication. I understand the need for them at times, but sometimes they just say things and then you're like, well, that's going to age really badly unless you nail that 100%. And when you look at that situation, it's exactly the same. It's like, well, you said you didn't need to, and then you did, and then you end up sending four of them. You only needed to sell two of them, but you sold all of these players, and But again, if you look at the whole thing, Leeds made a serious loss on players this year as well. Like the likes of Rocky, Llorente, and all those that went, they all went for cut price deals, and we still owe money on those players, so we lost money straight off the top of there as well. And then again, you break down the fact that the deals are done over a few years. It's like, okay, well, how much money actually was left at the end of that? But then to be able to say, well, actually, the money that came in for Red Bull meant that we could say no to the offer for Ethan Ampadu, no to the offer for Pascal Strauch, no to the offer for Melier. We were able to say those no's comfortably because we had that extra investment. But that's not how it was worded when they said it. And if you watch it back, they don't say it. It's in response to the Archie question, which gives you the feeling of, okay, good, Archie's fine if somebody else goes.
Yeah.
It's just one. But then you realize, well, actually, no, he was just talking about an individual person. If the question had been a broader question throughout the whole team, then maybe the answer is slightly different. But they answer their questions very literal. And then a couple of months later, you're like, well, that's not exactly how it happened. And that ambiguity causes friction, you know?
Yeah. I didn't buy the whole, we spoke to him on the final day, like saying, if it don't feel right, just come back and all that. And I was like, well, it's a little too late there. The deal was done and all that sort of stuff.
It's just a goodbye handshake isn't it? Like your mates, you're like, look, best of luck down in Devon, you know, if it doesn't work out, you can always come back. You know, we'll always be here for you. I think that's all they were doing there. I think he was just trying to make the point that even the last second, they were saying, look, if you're not sure, this is your home, like, you can stay. You don't have to go. But then you found out during the week that Aston Villa had talks to him as well. So,
yeah, we did. Yeah,
there's three clubs talking to him.
Yeah, he had a number of options. I think he did have a number of options. I just do want to get some.
Sorry, just in the comments, people, we say this. Leeds didn't bring in 140 million quid this summer. They didn't. They didn't. They sold 140 million of assets, but they didn't bring 140 million in one go. People keep saying Leeds at 140 million. They don't have 140 million. It doesn't come through in one lump sum. It's broken out over the length of the contracts. So divide the fee by the players that came in, and that's how much money Leeds brought in. Or they sold. That's how much money Leeds brought in. Minus then all the payments that Leeds already owe for transfers that Leeds bought in during the Premier League years and last season, but they still have to pay off. So
we brought in 100, but we don't have 100. We never had 140 million to spend. Of course not, but there was still money left over, isn't there? You know.
I worked it out about 25-30 million floating around. Which, if you look at Leeds spending, they went pretty close to that.
Yeah.
But then if you look what Angus says as well and go, if you ignore the sales, we're the highest spending team in the championship. We also have the highest wage bill by a mile in the division, which shows that Leeds have opted, instead of going for transfer fees for players, Leeds have opted to go for slightly cheaper, pay them slightly more.
Yeah. The Archie Gray one, like I say, it happened so early on in the window now, and I've finally come to terms with that fact. Do you know what I mean? Like, it took long enough. I think, look, the whole situation in which it happened and that, it all stunk, didn't it, really? If we're being honest, it just, from an optics point of view, from a fan's point of view, even also warring factions within the fan base, he said, she said, this, and this. Ultimately, you know, Archie's representatives, rightly so, have put a release clause in there. For whatever reason, it was for the PSR dead. I still don't understand that. Why? Because you can't tell me Archie's reps said, stick it in for the 30th of June.
I think that might have been just in case, because if you look at the Georgie one, it was done for a certain date that gave Leeds a couple of weeks before the window shut. So if it is activated, at least it's this date. And if you look at Gus Hamer's one at Sheffield United, it was the end of June, was the the date on
so
his. So if he hadn't been sold by 30th of June, then the release clause was gone. So they do put dates in them for different business reasons.
But my point is, though, from that tells me that that's both Archie's side and club side coming to terms on a release clause. That's not just one side saying, I want a release clause and that's that. And the club going, okay, yes. You know what I mean? They've obviously gone, right, okay.
That's the date that it goes in. If you're going to go, you're going to go when we want you to go. So we can at least deal with it.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
no one's going to be happy with them going, and they weren't.
No.
I should also be saying, this is the problem with it. It goes very much, Archie's one of our own, the Greys are Leeds. Therefore, everything that they say is 100% accurate and everything everyone else says is a lie. And then when you actually look at this and you've listened to Archie talking before and after, and you remove the tainted pieces that are on the left and the right, because he had to say nice things at Leeds because he was Leeds, and then he has to say nice things at Spurs because that's Spurs. He can't say, I've left my dream club. I'm devastated to be here. He has to say, I love the manager. He sold me a project that I can't wait to get going. But if you remove all of that noise, you get down to a black and white negotiation where Archie's family were all very well briefed on this, according to Kinnear. His granddad knew about it. He works at the club again. Like, so when you start putting this going, there's no way the story that they didn't know anything about this was true.
Yeah.
And then when you look at it, it actually just comes down to a footballer with a good team of people and family who negotiated a deal for themselves. That was a good deal for themselves. And the club took a hit by putting a release clause in, but they got what they wanted from that release clause. They set the date and the value. So they both got what they wanted from it.
Yeah, and I think Angus did say, didn't he, that Archie and his dad and everybody had, were exemplary in getting all this sort of done. So I think, look, with hindsight in the cold light of day in a couple of years, it's probably just best. I hate to use that line that you hear on WWE, but at the time it was best for business. Do you know what I mean?
Wish him all the best in his future endeavours.
Yes. There you go. Now let's talk about the number 10, because this was a bit mad. Obviously, we could talk about Brendan, but before we do, and again, this is where I get frustrated as a fan of the football club, because it almost feels like, Joe, the same trope that I heard from Angus under the previous regime of that we didn't have the player that we believe fit the bill. We had certain play. For me, this still could and should have gone out for a number 10. I think my opinion is Emi Buendia was a pipe dream. You were never getting a player. This is my opinion. You were never getting a player who, yes, has not had a great 12 months due to injuries or whatever, but he's now Aston Villa that are now going to be fighting on all fronts, have Champions League football, had already spent time. Listen, I was on Right Wars Rivals earlier, mentioned it, and they all laughed. Because I thought it was silly to even think that you were getting Emi Buendia. We then talk about Fabio Carvalho and saying that we were top of the list if we were in the Premier League. We were in the Premier League, so why are you even talking about Fabio Carvalho at this juncture?
You give a chance of getting him if no Premier League club makes an offer for him.
It's bullshit, Joe. This, in my opinion, is bullshit. He wasn't coming back to the Championship, hence why he was sold for 20-odd million to Brentford, for God's sake. So people can see it different to how I see it, but to say that there wasn't a number 10 out there that fit our brief, I think is incorrect. And I think that what they listed off, and this is where I don't. There's two bits that he talks about, and they're separate, but they're about the same topic, and if you bring both those bits together, it seems to make an awful lot more sense. On the initial thing about the number 10, he talks about we wanted Carvalho, and he mentioned Buendia, he mentioned Hamer, and he mentioned he didn't mention Hamer in that one, did he? He just spoke. Yeah, he spoke about Buendia and he spoke about Carvalho.
Yeah, but he mentioned Hamer as well because he talked about the bid and how they put the bid in and why it was a low ball bid. So they said it wasn't a low ball bid. Sheffield United wouldn't deal with them.
Yeah.
So basically, they were told there was no way he was leaving. Hamer was leaving Sheffield United. End of story. And then Kinnear said, but then we got some light that the club might be interested in a move. But he said Sheffield United are very hard to deal with right now because they're going through an ownership change. So he said there's no friendly face there to try and find out, well, what's the valuation that you guys are looking for? So he said the only way we could actually find out if he was interested was to put an offer in that we felt was of a sufficient value of the player. And they came back and said, he's not for sale in this window, and he's definitely not for sale to Leeds United.
Yeah.
And he said, at that point, when you've got an answer like that, and you believe that answer, there's no point going back in with a second bid.
No, that's fair enough. Yeah.
So that was the first one. The other two then, talking about the other ones, he said, we were ambitious. And I was the exact same with you. And I went, and Dan
I don't agree with that line.
On,
what do you mean? I'd go out with Megan Fox. I'm ambitious, but she's not going to date me, Joe.
So this is where I think the flip is. This is where I think it might be missed. And I'm on my second time of watching it, so I'm starting to pick up gaps between the lines, put that way, right? If you look at what he says about this, he says, the players we were after were Hamer and Buendia. Buendia weren't getting. Villa pretty much said straight away no, and he said not dropping down. Fine. Pipe dream. Absolute pipe dream to get him. Right. But if you don't ask, you don't get him. So you ask him. Now, Kinnear says, well, we want to be ambitious. And that's exactly like you saying, well, I can try and ask Megan Fox out. I can hop into her DMs every day and send her loads of messages. I can try, but I'm not going to get her. So why bother? Now, the flip to that is Leeds went out and got Manor Solomon, who had Premier League interest. Leeds went out and got... But it is, though, Joe.
No, it's not, man. You can't do it.
Manor Solomon.
Okay.
Premier League club.
Right, okay.
And Leeds then say, well, we were competing against a Premier League club and we lost it.
Yeah. But we
got him.
No.
This is what I'm saying, but you can't say,
right,
I believe this, but I believe nothing else over it.
So in response to that, though, so them two names mentioned, for example, Buendia and Carvalho was another one. Are we saying that there was no other 10 out there that Leeds United could have got? Because that's basically what we were told.
That's the part to focus on. The other part, I'm okay with. I can say, well, actually, fair enough. You threw a net out for a certain level of player, knowing full well you probably wouldn't get them. But if you got them, that's a hell of a player you're getting. And we've talked about Solomon. He's one of those. You got him. Right. But what about the 10?
Yeah. Now, do you know what as well? Because someone's mentioned the Rodon stuff. And again, this is where I don't agree. Because you can't tell me Joe Rodon was dead set 6 months before the end of the season doing the kit videos, basically saying I want to be here, and then also saying 6 months after, well, we beat Premier League to him. Well, he was already coming, wasn't he? So that's not the bigger winner. I don't think that's as big a win as.
Got to go back to the end, though, Joe.
No, but I still don't think that's as big a win because he was already here. He was already here.
Yeah. But there's a desire for him to want to be here. I think that was the big point that he was making. Is Leeds want players who want to be here, and he said it as well. Unfortunately, we've had times at this club where people have been in this club who just don't want to be here at this club, and that goes back to the Premier League players that all walked out. Like, none of them, they all wanted Premier League wages and they wanted to be Premier League players. But they didn't give a shit about Leeds United. It was never about Leeds. It was always about Premier League. So when Leeds fell away, they were gone. Always the case. What he's talking about now is we want players who want to be here, and we have a Premier League level centre back who wanted to be here so much that even during his loan spell, he's like, I'm doing the kit launch next year because I'm convinced I'm going to be here next year.
I just want to bite back to this as well. Vic, I hear what you're saying, but I will refuse to take everything literal. I will refuse to take everything literal that comes out of his mouth. And this is where we'll disagree, because we heard the same lines when Bielsa was in charge from the same bloody bloke that was telling you, they didn't. They didn't fit his mold of player, and then we find out the players that he wanted, and we go, well, we understand.
But I don't think Daniel Farke.
So what I will say though, Joe, to come and this is again answer that question, right? Okay, so there was no other 10 out there then, no other 10 out there.
Question. That's the right question.
No other 10. That's it.
Saying the other players, saying what was the point going after those players, and then saying Solomon's not one of those players is incorrect.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're in the same mix. For me, getting Solomon proves that they tried to get Premier League level, even if they were pipe dreams. But that's a different question. The question around, so why didn't you just get a 10? That comes down to, was there good enough value for money? Was there available money to forward that? Did the player fit the mold of what Leeds were looking for? Did Daniel Farke want that player? Hamer wasn't happening. They were told out straight, you're not getting him. Buendia wasn't happening. You're not getting him. And they were the two that he named that Farke wanted. So straight away, the manager has gone and said, these two players, please. And we know he has history with Buendia. It was an obvious name. And Hamer is a player he wanted last summer. And Tanaka is another player he wanted last summer. He talked quite at length about Tanaka today. So clearly Farke in his head has, this is the team I envisage Leeds being. And I want those players. And I'll get them this year that I didn't get last year. But he's not getting them.
Can I just say that as well? But this is my point. Is saying I don't believe that. That's the bit that I don't believe, because they would have been.
I do.
We just haven't spent the money.
But
I disagree because then Farker wouldn't have come out afterwards and said, "Well, you speak to the finance people. I'm not an accountant. We didn't get it." Ultimately, for me, and this is where the whole point is an issue for me, and I don't know about you, is that he mentioned there being tension between the data team and the scouting team and coaching staff, manager and ownership, and said we did have constructive dialogue with Daniel. There are no players everybody wasn't fully aligned on before we secured them. So my point would be maybe that there needs to be someone that can break out of that mold in a way, rather than having every single person having to be like too many cooks spoil the broth, Joe. Do you know what I mean?
But that could be exactly what's happened. But in the other way, in terms of he might have looked at what he's got and went, right, that's the standard. And if you go back again, try and follow the logical path with Farke's comments, and when Farke says things, because if we're believing everything Farke says as gospel, and I don't believe a lot of what managers say a lot of times, because they tend to be the ones that are the face of the club. But if you're going to say I'm not taking them literally, but you're taking Farke, then you've got to stick with that logic and follow that through to its natural conclusion. If you follow what Farke has said and you take it in timeline, week before the end of the deadline, Farke wanted 4 players. He never mentioned the 10. Never once mentioned the 10. Now, a week later, he wanted the 10. That was 3 days before the window closed. But a week prior to that, he didn't want that, which suggests to me he had 4 players left that he needed to have the squad the way he wanted it. And he got them, or at least at that point was told, these will all get done. No problem, these are all done. And at that point, then he said, if we can get a 10, that'd be great as well.
We don't know if one of them players was a 10 though, right? But then was offered Solomon, and it's one of them that you can't, it's too good to turn down.
You've got a compromise to make here. You can have the 10, or you can have Solomon, you pick.
Yeah, maybe.
But then the manager's going to go out and cover his ass as well. And Farke is doing a bit of that. And if you look at his press conference this week and last week, there is a lot of expectation management. He is saying a lot of things about not being the favourites anymore, and it's going to take time. And again, he was talking about Ramazani, who the Almira manager was bigging up during the week, and anyone that's seen him says he's a fantastic signing for Leeds. Farke is still saying he's never played this level. So for me, there's still an element of the manager saying, I'm just getting my excuses ready here, just in case.
Is that where you see it?
I think every manager does it. I think they all do. I think that they have an idea in their head of what they think will work. But then when it's done and it's closed and you've got all your fresh toys in, so that's promotion then, Daniel, isn't it? You've got what you wanted, which is why he can't get what he wants.
Yeah, no,
you know what I mean? If he has all the tools and all the toys that he wants, then at the end of the season, he's responsible. So he has to give himself a door out as well, and he's done that.
Yeah, I think, I hear what you're saying, of course, and no one will ever.
You don't want to crap potential. You want someone who's better than what we've already got in the squad.
100%, and I think they were out there though, because Roland Salai was available.
No, 10. But no.
Well, even in the Championship, let's say someone like an Ilias Chair, there's one there that wouldn't cost you anywhere near. Now, of course, it comes with baggage. I hear you, but my point is, when we're saying, I've just heard the same line before, that's all. And I'd like for once my football club to
go and do it.
To go and fucking do it.
Just
that's
go get it
done. Not the whole,
we
didn't all align and just... Why not for once? Because he mentioned, didn't he? He mentioned Rowe. He mentioned Johnny Rowe at one point. He mentioned Clark at one point. And then made out, they were... He went to League and he went to Premier League. But from all we know, it were derisory offers that came in from Leeds United. Anyway, if you were serious about getting them, go get them. Do you know?
But that depends whether Leeds had that free money to go and spend that kind of level. They clearly did. Leeds clearly had a budget. And also... do you want neglectful spending at your football club? Again, keep saying this. We're Leeds United. We know what the fallout of bad spending looks like. And there's even a bit of nervousness around some bits of this interview as well, Kinnear. If you look towards the end of it, when he says, we're talking about the spending model and spending money on players, and it's like, well, it's his neck on the line if it goes wrong. Like, we're three signings or one bad manager appointment away from disaster. So he's not going to just go, well, feck it, let's just throw it. Most big companies, if push comes to shove and they're not 100% bought in, will stay as they are, rather than add a risky element to what they've got. So if you look at the character is a big piece, and you've got to take all those factors. Like Farke talked about, the price has got to be realistic. They've got to be better than what we've already got in the squad. They've got to add to this team and the style that we play. They've got to have a certain character to want to be here. And then go through those lists of players and go, well, did they want to be here? Probably not. They went somewhere else. So that's off the list, gone straight away. It doesn't fill the characteristics of what Leeds are looking for in that player. So therefore, you're not buying them. It's like anyone, if you wanted this, if you're playing Football Manager, or if you're out coaching the local side and you're like, I want that kid on that team, he's really, really good. But then you find out that the kid's an arsehole and he causes problems in training and he's a whinge and he doesn't pass the ball. And then you're like, well, now I don't want him in my squad because he's going to upset everybody. You know what I mean? So that's what they're looking at. Character. Ilias Chair doesn't fall into that character bracket. So we can all look at him and think he's a great sign. And Faraka might have even thought he's a good player. I'd like him. Yeah. And then you look at the characteristics and go, yeah, but there's a risk to that. And if we spend that money, and if he unsettles the dressing room and we don't go up because the dressing room was unsettled.
Do you do you agree though? So my point is, I hear what you're saying in different aspects, and chair, whatever. People don't have to agree with that, but I just feel that again, don't focus too much on chair. I'm just saying that they're individual. And I'm not saying it to you. It's more so to the chat mates and see it all popping off. Chair. It's not even about that as such. It's just I don't want to hear, for me, what I would consider unrealistic targets when I know there would have been targets out there that you could have got.
Yeah.
That's
we did let number 10 go last year because he wasn't good enough for us. That was Sam Greenwood. We let him walk out the door and again this year because he's not good enough.
Pony.
But there's an out and out number 10. So the question of whether there's 10s out there's one. But he's not good enough.
Yeah. No, but there would have been one that was good enough, is my point.
You would hope so, but then they could have looked at it and gone, right. And now I'm only speculating, and I'm trying to see it from both points. But
it's so silly to say who, Joe. I don't fucking work in recruitment, Tom.
No, but that's the point.
I don't work in recruitment. I don't have to know these things. Did any of us, apart from a few that knew about Ramazani, Solomon was available, etc.,
Dan Moylan said it, man. Dan Moylan said that people will say it's a failure of recruitment.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So then you go back to the checklist again and go, before we sign a player, they must be under this price bracket. They must be of a certain age, between 23 and 26. That's what Kinnear said, the age bracket they're shopping at. 28, 23, 26. Has to be in that bracket. They have to be better than what we've got. So better than Brendan Aronson, better than Willie Nonto, probably better than Manor Solomon. It's going to be better than them because we've got someone who can do that job.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then do they want to come here and do they want to play for Leeds? And then when you go through that checklist, that list of all those players that are out there could be that. Yeah. And then all those two.
So you go get that. So go get that. Do you know what I mean?
Like, you always can't piss everyone off. No, don't want to be dressing room.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of both. I mean, you're never going to get everyone getting everyone that they want. And what I did take, and it was one of the few moments where during the interview I kind of went, yeah, right, fair enough. It was where Kinnear basically pointed out every other championship club's problems and basically said, we don't have any of those problems. We're lucky. We don't have those problems. We have the top squad in the division on paper in terms of financial terms. This is the best squad. This is the highest paid squad in this division. But we're never going to be happy with what we get. If we get a 10, I guarantee you, me and you were sitting there having a conversation going, 9 would have been nice though, wouldn't it, at the end? If we just got a 9 at the end, that would have been perfect. You'll always want one more. And managers, and I've been a manager, and I've been a coach, and I've been a player, and I can tell you, manager will always want one more. Just give me one, just get that one more thing.
Of course.
Daniel, you have the cake, you have the icing, you have the cherry. We put it in a nice box for you. We've stuck a bow on it. Yeah, I know, but can we get that bloke to carry it? You know what I mean? Well, no, you can't. You can't have it all. And unfortunately, we want it all, and we can't get that. But there are bits in it I will take that I can see his logic at least. Would I have loved Leeds to go out and just buy a 10? Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's where my fan side of my brain and my emotional side of my brain is. For once, I'd just like to say Leeds just go
100%. That's the point. Yeah.
And Dan Moylan said about the teams breaking financial fair play rules of going, well, what's the point if everyone's benefiting from cheating? What's the point? Like, why don't we just do it? And at the same time, I go, yeah, I get that. But the logical business side of my brain goes, yeah, but you can't. And that these things don't just happen. You can't just go buy a player. It's not that simple. If it was that simple, we'd all have jobs in recruitment and be getting huge money. It'd be great. But we don't. And you won't get everyone you've got. And you've got to look at the window and go, do we have enough in the recruitment that we've brought in? The ones that they did bring in, are they of a sufficient level to get us out of this division? And I think that they are.
Oh yeah, 100%. I'm not bemoaning what we've got. I've said on a number of occasions, I'm happy with what we've got. There's just a few lines, certain bits, but as I've said right at the top, I thought it was okay. You know, I thought it was a lot better than I than I envisaged, if I'm honest. But yeah,
detail. I don't think anyone was looking for massive answers, Joe. I think we're just looking for just tell us the club's perspective on this.
Yeah. And listen, and anyone, and the what? I don't know if that's the right word. What about her? It's probably not. I will always remain skeptical, and I will always have, as was said in the chat, a predetermined. I don't know how you put it, Vic. Very educated and way of putting it. Of my point, but I will always have that over Angus.
What's your fan bias, Joe?
Yeah, as well, and just because of the way that Bielsa was dressed. So from that point, it's like, right, okay, you know,
he's the outlier
your
now,
cards
isn't he?
are
He's the only left from that time.
Yeah,
so
exactly
your frustration
that as well.
of everything that happened then is still going to go towards
that
him.
was it. A preconceived or preordained idea on things. And I opened this video by saying at the start, I said, "You're fucking Luton, mate. Get in the bin." By the end of it, I was all right. So that's just the journey that I went on. Listening to it.
You don't want him to be a Leeds United fan in that position. Can you imagine the decisions you'd make as a fan?
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe there's something in that. Yeah, maybe there is something in that. But yeah, and look, and I actually took a lot of flack for suggesting that Brendan Aronson could be that 10 at the start of the season. I was on that train, and so I'm not gonna for those now that are going, oh well, no one's better than Brendan. Some people who were saying it didn't even fucking want the lad either. So I think it's it is what it is. But I was on that train. I thought he could do it at this level, and I think he can. And there is more than enough at the football club, and we'll assess it in January. But hopefully, we'll be good. So yeah, we'll be good. Now, on to some other stuff. Obviously, that was the transfer stuff. If anyone has any sort of questions, hang on, this stuff. I did star a few. Let me just go through this. 1 second. Actually, no, they've probably all been answered now. Right, okay. The announcement expected on Ellen Road development, new capacity project. That's had a lot of money put into it. 55,000 should have an announcement soon and all that sort of stuff. So that's positive. Finally.
Yeah, I think he said 53,000 in total currently, but they're looking at getting in. They're taking the commercial stuff out of the north stand and it's going into the west stand. So that means a slight reduction in the numbers they were going to put into the west stand, but there'll be no corporate facilities in the north stand anymore. South stand or the cop, one or the other, whichever one they're doing. One of the ends and one of the sides.
Yeah, north on it.
But that all seems very good news. He said there'll be plenty of general admissions. There'll be some general admissions plus, and there will be more corporate seating in there because there has to be, because that's where the revenue will come. The increased revenue will come from.
Yeah.
Fine.
What I didn't like was where I love Dan asking him though, when he asked about the season ticket waiting list. Because, for example, my son's on that and he went on that and he'd be 6 this year. And he said, well, where are they on that waiting list? And he said, well, we don't tell them. And he went, well, you've made people pay for it, so you should really be telling them. And I did agree with Dan on that point. I do, because you just be on a list somewhere. You don't even know, do you? I think it's, yeah, you don't even know what's going on.
£12 we pay for the list to be on the list. Something like that. I'm on the list. I can't remember.
Yeah, it was.
That's not a small amount of money every year. That's
no, and if you think how many people are on that waiting list, and we don't, it almost felt like to me, I don't even
£264,000 a year.
Who sets that up and says, well, let's just create a waiting list, and he mentioned we do it at Arsenal, and we did it there. Well, I don't, we're not Arsenal and all that, and I just thought it was. Yeah, and it isn't right, really, the fact that you're paying for it, because
but I'm a tourist. Right. I live outside the UK, so I consistently get called a tourist fan. The tourists are, and I heard it on BBC during the week on Don't Go to Bed Just Yet when guy of the Kaiser Chiefs was saying that the people that were normally in the seats beside him were back in the seats beside him, that the tourists had gone away, and I really didn't like that comment at all. I got annoyed at that, because we're not all lucky enough to have Ellen Road on our doorstep, you know what I mean, or have the money that some people have to make sure they can go there every single week, I went religiously to Elland Road when we were in League One and the shitty years in the Championship. I have photographs, I have ticket stubs from sitting in an empty Elland Road. And I did the same as you one year. Couldn't get a ticket online because they wouldn't sell it to us, whatever was wrong at the time, and wandered into the ticket office the morning of the game and got one and walked into the ground. No problem. It was so confident back then. You get your flight and your hotel sorted out and just wander up to the ground and you get in, no problem. So I've been to plenty of times I've been at Leeds when it was really crap. And now I can't get into Elland Road when it's going better. Like only from my mate Brian, I wouldn't have seen Leeds in the Premier League. You know what I mean? Like and that annoys me. So I'm on that waiting list. I want to know where I am. And I was really glad that Dan asked about it. But this is where they're pushing and asking the next question. And I know people, you have to, again, you do it or you don't do it. And if Dan's going to push him on certain issues, he's got to push him on all.
Angus shit himself, by the way, as well, because he took a big gulp and a massive drink of water and then said, "Oh, yeah, I think we'll have a look at it." No, whatever.
I think you'll have to now because what he said out loud wasn't, again, come from my background in retail and sales with stuff. What he says is very interesting. You've put a price on that. So people deserve to know where they are on the list.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
Because you've now made it Dan has now made it a product by saying that.
Yeah.
So there's accountability to that product sales. Like the price you see is the price you pay. What am I paying for? What am I getting? Where am I? When am I next? And I'm pretty sure if you pay to be in a queue, you're entitled to know where you are in that queue. And that's why I think you let us know what kind of you're in the top 10,000 or you're in the next the second 10,000 or whatever it is. But he said most of that list will be cleared when they add on the extra seats. So.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Because a lot will have to go. Yeah, you get an email, mate. I do agree. Like when he said about 30 come available each year, which you can imagine, because no one would want to give them up, right? And some, it's difficult. What else was there as well? I mean, I loved Michael's line about Court when he was talking about Red Bull, and he went, "Well, you'll know what I mean. You'll have met me in Court." I thought it was brilliant.
I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, then just decided to laugh out loud. It was brilliant. Fantastic, so actually. Good, and then Kinnear, to be fair to him, replied with, "Old friends."
Yeah. It was good, wasn't it? It proper made me laugh.
It needed It needed a few of those in there to keep it lighthearted because it could have been a pretty shitty time for everyone in there and a tough listen, but they didn't. They made it a very enjoyable listen.
It was. Was there anything else in it, Joe, that we've
Red
missed?
Bull,
really?
the whole Red Bull thing.
Oh, right.
They will not put the name on the shirt, on the badge. It won't happen. And Kinnear said if it does happen, he'll leave. Now, and this is again the part. And this
I don't think I never. Go on.
I'm interested to see, do people's opinions now change? Because again, going back to the thing I said at the start, people wanted to know. I want to know that this will never. The club need to come out and tell us that the name will never change to Red Bull Leeds. They need to come out and they need to tell us. Everyone was demanding that. Kinnear has given you about as categoric a "it will not happen" as he can possibly give.
Well, I think we've seen now. For me, like when Red Bull came in, there was talk of the director had gone and there's a new guy and they're looking to invest more in football. And we've seen them now become energy drinks partners with Newcastle, and they said they've picked like 6 clubs and we were the first. So I do think it's under a different guise now anyway, do you know? So I don't think
it was sponsorship in the guise of equity. So I kind of felt like I was trying to figure out how I could even describe it. It's like, I don't have all the money to give you for this thing that I want to do. So here's a bit of the company and some money. And now we get that's the kind of the bridge. Like you can't have everything, but I can give you a little bit here and there. So maybe it was a case of like, we want slightly more than we want to be a drinks partner. We'd like to be involved in the mix somewhere as well. Take equity in the club, but do the drink sponsorship as well. And then the name sponsor. The fact they've done loads of clubs in the Premier League now as well, and we're not in the Premier League, and they've chosen us as the shirt sponsor. What people don't realize, and it's not necessarily because it's Red Bull, there's a very smart bit of business being done there, getting away from gambling companies before the embargo comes in on them next year. Yeah. When no club will be allowed to have a main shirt sponsor to gambling, we've already moved away from them to a very, very large energy drink company. And there's not going to be many big non-gambling, non-alcohol non-cigarette companies floating around anymore that you can just go and get a massive sponsorship from, you know. So if you can get one that's big and brings in huge revenue now before you get to that point, brilliant, well done. It's just the baggage they come with. But as you said, this is a huge point. The guy that is running the ship has a very different view of how the ship should be run versus the guy that bought Red Bull Robs at Leipzig and Salzburg and all them.
Because his thing was we would only take over if we owned it, right? Whereas
we only invest if we own.
Yeah, that was it.
When this guy's not that way. This guy's now more, you know, we want to be involved more, or we want to just.
I think we've seen that with the Newcastle stuff, didn't they? When they became like the drinks partner or something like that.
But I still think there's a bit in the back of the head. Keep an eye. Like, don't take your eye off what they're doing. You shouldn't. Like, that's just. No owner is great. No owner is brilliant. You know, there's always baggage. So you don't take their eye off them. But I do think you now look at it and go, okay, well, now I understand the money. I understand why they did this. The Blue Bulls, he said, yeah, they were happy to do it on the yellow one, but they're giving us a lot of money. So you've got, at some point, you've got to say, that's our brand that's going on the short end of the story because we're paying you the money to do it. So,
of course.
You know, I get that as well. It'd be great if it wasn't. But then things can change over time. And I think you've seen over in Germany with some of the kits, they've gone to like a white stencil on some of their shirts. So maybe they change away from it eventually. You never know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
all in all,
I'm glad that Dan pushed the, you know, and Angus's opinions on the regulator and the government. Like, he's blamed the government on a lot of things. Like he said on the Super League had happened. It was done. Fans stopped it from happening, not the government. Government had nothing to do with it. Sleep at the wheel, he said. They didn't see it coming. They weren't ready.
Yeah, but he's always never wanted that. He called it like he called it like Chief Mao or something before or something like that. I don't even know what. I remember him making a historical context to. So he's going to say
Premier League
ignore that.
Yeah. Well, it's also
I mean,
the part where
the
it benefits
regulator,
us.
He just don't
want
the regulator.
It's also the point where it benefits us because he's looking at this new model coming in that won't benefit us that much. It'll benefit us more than other clubs, but it won't give us the freedom to do what we want. And he wants.
Yeah, but he just don't want a regulator anyway, though, because like I think it's
the Red Bull want to spend the money they can spend, Joe, and they can't spend. Sorry, not Red Bull, 49ers, and they can't spend.
We do need a regulator, I think.
I think you need somebody to make sure everyone behaves themselves, but I don't think the playing field is even. And even the stuff I talked to Karen Maguire about, and I've listened to a lot of Simon Jordan talking about stuff. This isn't a better deal.
No, that's not what that is, though, is it? The regulator. You're talking about the new PSR thing.
Oh yeah, but he's talking in general about the FFP stuff. Won't change things. The regulator, he thinks it's just a bad idea because what it'll do is it'll just make the gap bigger and lock everyone in where they are.
No, he's on. No. The regulator
just coming up and spending. The regulator won't let us do what we want to do. Yeah,
not the
regulator.
No, Joe. You've misconstrued two different points.
There's two. There. I'm saying he's got one side where he's saying the FFP rules that they're looking at bringing in don't benefit us, right? Not in that, guys. They don't. They really don't. They benefit. You're talking hundreds of millions of a gap between what Man City can spend every year and what we could spend going into that league, even if the shackles were off. Like it's mind-boggling. Like 75% of Man United's revenue works out as a transfer budget of like 500 million a year.
Coming in.
That works out about 500 million a year, where the example he used was Newcastle. Theirs is about 175 million a year that they can spend based on it. So that's a massive gap of nearly 300 million in 5 places in the league table. Imagine where Leeds would be coming into that. And then the regulator coming in just wants everyone to stop spending money. Like, just this thing about sustainability. Stephen Borson said the same thing on TalkSport about it as well. It's not about sustainability. Like, it's not. Outside of in the last 100 years, most of these clubs are still the same as they were. They've changed divisions a little bit, but the league still exists. It's the best in the world. So clearly it can govern itself to a degree. There was a rule before where FIFA didn't allow governments to get involved in football associations to dictate them because it was, but that seems to have been gone now. But I don't think he wants any governance on that because I think he sees that if Leeds can get into the Premier League with the backing that they've got right now, we could be a top 10 club, no problem, very quickly. But with a regulator, they won't let us do that because it won't be a sustainable growth. And with the new financial fair play rules that will come in, we'll have a set budget that we can spend. And both will restrict us. And I think the way Angus is looking at it is we have big pockets here and they want to flex them, but they can't. And Newcastle are in the exact same boat. They don't want either of these two things either because if they get it, well, they can't flex either. And they have all the money to flex. They're the richest club in the world and they can't spend it. So Angus wants to spend money, but he can't.
Yeah. We just want proof of funds, don't they? A bit like how Birmingham have getting on now in League One.
No FFP in the League One. which is
Yeah, but it
nuts.
changes from next year,
Next
I
year.
think.
Yeah,
So
after they
yeah,
bought the league
again,
back in. And
just
they could do a double bounce. Very easy.
could do, because they've bought well enough to win the championship. Yeah, or have enough players in the championship for sure. I don't think there's anything else we need to go through. Is there
Where's
really?
your head at now, Joe? That's now that you've heard everything.
In terms of
The whole ownership model in the summer, where do you sit now that everything is boxed off, full stop? How do you feel?
I'm all right. Yeah, I'm relatively calm. Yeah, I'm all right. I'd said, yeah, I think we've got more than enough, 100%. And would I have liked a little bit more? Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. But yeah, we've got more than enough. I think. I still think we go up. I still think we win the league. If we get to January and we're in a precarious position or in a similar position to what we were in last January, then I'd like us to spend and not feck about and wait till last week and bring in a right back that then doesn't start. I'd want us to really, really push the envelope because I think we deserve it. I think the money's there to do it. But I think we've got more than enough. And if we don't go up this year, then all roads lead to the manager. And and I've said that. I think, look, even if Farker wants to say, I could have done with it. I get that, but you've still got more than enough. So let's not pretend that we haven't got enough. Because we've got the best squad. I felt that we did last year. Maybe I was incorrect, but because when I look at the bench, but now I do think we have. Sheffield United have a very good 11, not a great bench. Burnley, okay, maybe on par with us, but we're definitely up there. And all roads would lead to the manager if we don't get promoted this time, 100%.
If we're on par with other clubs, then it's all down to the coach.
Yes, yeah, that as well. Yeah. What about you? Yeah. You were never not
fine.
happy, were you?
No, I was.
I don't
get overly wound up about things initially. I like to see them play out and see, well, where is it going to be at the end of this? Like the instant reaction stuff is I've done it for too long. I'm older now. I'm a bit like I'll give it a minute. I'll just give it a few minutes. I go, I think, but I get wound up by an awful lot of stuff that we do on a regular. But I get more wound up about the performances. I think we saw that with the final world and stuff last year. It was more a case I got wound up by performances more than everything else that goes on at the club. But I think that they've done the business they needed to do. I liked how Farke talked about Tanaka today. That reassured me that he's and he looks
proper
excited.
Talked him up, didn't he? Proper talked him up,
But even the way he said, he puts his head down when he's trying to avoid, getting carried away.
Makes you wonder why we didn't get him last summer.
He got a knee injury right before we signed him. He left training, and we all thought he was leaving to fly to Leeds, and they're like, no, he actually twisted his knee in training and was taken out for it to be checked. And then at that base, Leeds went for Kamara instead. But you can see clearly he wanted Kamara. He didn't want Kamara. He wanted Tanaka instead of Kamara because he talked about goals. He talked about assists. And then if you look at Kinnear, he also talked about the midfield last year not contributing. So they weren't happy with Kamara last year in that midfield. Whether we were or not, they clearly were looked at and went, we just didn't get enough from that position. We need more from there. And that's why they got him. But he does this little thing with his head, Farke, when he's trying he has isms. I think if you watch him for long enough, you can kind of pick up on whether he's telling the truth or he's avoiding something. He has little quirks that he does. But he puts the head down and he kind of, and he gets a bit playful, but when he's excited, and he was talking about Tanaka, and he goes, he's very good in the ball, and he's Japanese international, and he goes, in a 10-minute spell, he looks, really good. And you're like, he's excited about this guy. He's like, we've proven right on him. So that's really, really good. I see Gilly saying, Alioski's a free agent. Yeah, he is. I wouldn't say no. If he comes in as backup, why not? Just for banter. But I think everything else they've done what they can. I would agree. If the money was there, go buy a 10. But again, if it's a 10, you're only going to have for 12 months, waste money, lose value on him. You might not need him to get up anyway. Save the money and buy a player next year.
Yeah,
but it has to be broached next year with him again. Of going, it was important last year. We didn't get it. It was important this year. We didn't get it. You're going into the Premier Division now, where the excuse of players don't want to come to the Championship is now gone. You've got money. You've got a bigger capacity to spend now. Go get your 10 next summer. I don't expect Leeds to spend in January at all this year. I'd be shocked if we do any business in January, unless it's really cheap. But I would agree.
If we need some, no.
I'm agree with you on that. Yeah, 100%. Right. If we get to that stage and it's that close, and I think Dan got at that point today about saying sometimes just extra bodies would have helped. Like Kiefer Moore was you talked to him a lot last year as well. He brought up Kiefer Moore, and I think if you look at what he says replying to that, he kind of goes, yeah. But Farke doesn't want a big squad.
Yeah, but he's going to have to, isn't he? Well, someone needs to.
Somebody's going to suck him. I think he's got it this year.
Yeah.
I think he's got it this year. We can talk about squad size all we want, but if you look at the 18 or the 20, he has far more options this year than he had last year.
Oh, yeah. Massive, definitely.
Just go in the second league and get out of this. Stop recommending Dele Alli as a sign. He hasn't played football in 2 years.
Silly, man, honestly. I had some right requests one time. Oh, there was some add-ons in there. Someone suggested Sergio Ramos.
I saw Sergio Ramos as well. Recommended to me. Yeah, free agent. Yeah, but he's a nutcase, so you don't bring him in.
Sergio fucking Ramos. I was like, yes, but imagine. I don't know, mate. Some crazy.
Do you remember Kiko Casilla? Because they're very similar people.
No, man. What? Are you telling me you wouldn't have took Sergio Ramos?
In his prime, yeah, not now.
Well, not now.
He's a nutcase, man. He's a fruitcake.
He's
nuts. Can you?
Well, you wouldn't take Sergio Ramos in the championship?
Well, he wouldn't come be red carded every second.
No, well, no, he wouldn't come. That was the craziness. I thought you were like, nah, you just likened him.
He's sent off all the time. He never been
fucking Kiko Casilla. He's different. But nah, he was suggested as an actual pickup, like someone we should consider. I was like, oh, you can't be really real, man.
Oh, he did say, yeah, I'll come to Leeds. You're like, I don't know if we want you at this part of your career. Last year at Seville was a disaster for him. Because last year at Seville was a disaster for him. And he went back there for nothing.
That's Victor Orta, man.
Hometown club.
That's all Victor.
He's
not well plastic. He would smash it. What are we doing here? Why are people saying
well, we should bring Pepe in as well because he did it in the Champions League? I was like, yeah, but he's also a lunatic.
What do you mean Pepe was one of the best defenders at the Euros just gone? That one. I mean, is that what we're saying? Like, come on, we're in the championship, man. We're in the championship.
No. At some point, any player, you've got to go, he's too old and he's past it, he's done.
Yeah, maybe.
And he's going to get sent off every week, so he's not going to be available for you.
Bring it on. Tired, I think. Is the answer. From me, folks, the preview tomorrow. I think we'll do a fan preview on the night, me and JT. And I think I'm going to do the whole Sheffield United game, which is on Friday night. So that'll be out. And then Saturday's game day. But, Joe, what have you got coming out tomorrow for the people?
Just stuff there today, but no one's watching anything today. The numbers just it's died today.
Oh, really?
Today, enough. Yeah, I thought it'd be a big day with the Kinnear stuff, but no, it's died. The news is out from today. Some stuff around Cooper, Carl Darlow, and some Willie Nunton Ramazani being bigged up by a BBC pundit coming into the weekend in the Burnley game. The podcast looking back at Liam Cooper's career is tonight with yourself. I enjoyed that. Yeah, it was good. And Joe Blackburn as well. Nice. And then tomorrow morning, the news match preview with stats at 7 tomorrow evening, and then Saturday the countdown to kickoff before kickoff, which will then redirect to you.
Yeah, good stuff. What was it gonna? What's have you done a little bit on Angus yourself for tomorrow's news for people to get into?
I will decide that in the morning. I think I'll see what else is floating around. If I can avoid covering something that's already been covered, I will. But if it's quiet, I'll have a look.
I am a quiet fan of yours. What's a quiet fan? Just
someone doesn't say it.
Just doesn't say it.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
What's it's called Leeds United The View, Luke. Where have you been? Leeds The View. Where have you been? Peace out. Yeah, Leeds Live mentioned Ramos along with Matip and Dummett. Really? You know. I'd have took Joel Matip as well. There's another one. What a football.
Joel Matip, I would say yes to right now. He's still a free agent as well.
Great on the ball. Very good on the ball. But again, he's broken. I think. Wow. Yeah. Oh, and the white top's out tomorrow, isn't it? That white top.
Can I just? They've advertised it like a kit launch because of the demand that's there for it.
Yeah.
Have you seen it? Yeah. The date and the smiley badge, and then Willie Nanton. They would not have done that only for the feedback they got from the kit launch. Yeah.
It's a beauty. I'm skint though now till payday. So
the navy hoodie they were all wearing.
Yeah, the hoodies. I think maybe they're all out at the same time, no?
Well, none of the merch is out this year, bar what the initial black and
You
grey.
can get it on Klarna anyway, so you could just do it on a. Yeah, I'm so sorry. It's so rude. You can do it on 3 payments, man. So if it's what, I don't know, it might be 90, might be 360. I think it'll be expensive, by the way.
That'll be in the hundreds. I'd be shocked if it was like 120 quid or something like that for that white top.
Well, I won't pay it if it's that.
No.
80 or 90, I think it'll be. Same as a top.
Yeah,
80. Yeah, maybe.
You see, I'm tall.
Not over 100 quid. They can get in the bin for that, and they're not getting my money for that.
I'm tall and I've got long arms, which is fine for jumpers and stuff. But that kind of a jersey, I'm looking at going, it's going to be here, isn't it? It's going to stop there on me, like, or it's going to be too short on the. So like, now we have to try that on.
Yeah. Right. Folks, I need to sleep. Yes, we'll see you in a bit. Thanks for watching as always, and we'll probably see you tomorrow on our respective channels. Bye-bye.